right? Some bodies, oops, some bodies have, alright, so the claim is some bodies have weight. Obviously, the bodies would be, and I list this, right? Bodies would be our subject, and having weight would be our predicate. And unlike a bachelor, and actually let me do both of them, right? So we have a bachelor is an right, so a bachelor is our subject, and unmarried man is our. Okay, so in this claim, in the previous claim, we said a bachelor is an unmarried man, but being an unmarried man is already entailed within being a bachelor, right? Being an unmarried man is already entailed within being a bachelor. And insofar as already entailed with being a bachelor, I don't need to identify, right? I don't need to be technical, right? I don't need, and I don't know how technical I want to get. I'm not going to get too technical, but I don't need to instantiate this claim to a particular individual to recognize that this claim is true. The truth of this claim is true by its definition, right? Because part of being a bachelor is being unmarried. It's impossible to affirm that someone is a bachelor, but to deny that he is unmarried. And in a second, I'll return to that claim and that sort of that fact. It's not the same for this first, right? It's not the same for this first sentence, right? Some bodies have weight, right? The fact that I've said some bodies have weight lets me know, at least on a very, very sort of general level, that it's not the claim is not that all bodies have weight. That this thing, this predicate, this having of weight, is something which is attributed or can be attributed to a better, a more full, a more amplified, an amplitive judgment, an amplitive understanding of the predicate, of the subject. And the subject in this case is bodies. So when we're talking about bodies, I have a better understanding of bodies now. I have a better understanding of the totality of bodies because I recognize this claim. So I've done a little, and this is what I'm saying. I don't want to get too technical, but obviously this can be formalized, right? Some bodies have weight. I'm not going to do the formalization here. I have it on the document if you want to look at it. And I guess I will because I'll have to draw the picture. So our subject is bodies, and our predicate is weight. This insight, the insight of having weight, allows me to attain a better, a more full understanding of bodies, right? So actually this would be symbolized as this, right? We know that our, and I said this before, right? Our predicate term is in caps, and then our subject is lowercase. So if our subject is bodies, right, and our predicate is weight, that's what we would have, right? We would symbolize it as this, right? And if we're talking about some bodies and not all bodies, right? So there is an x such that that x, some x, right? If that x is a b, it has weight, right? Some bodies have weight. We're not talking about all bodies. Well, how would that look? And just to, I think sort of visually, and hopefully this makes sense. If we're talking about the set or the class or the scope of all things body, B-O-D, bodies, then it would be the case that this exists within that totality, right? There is a case that we have some bodies having weight, not all bodies, right? So it would just be like a smaller circle within this larger circle. Within the circle, and we'll say that, right, B equals bodies. So not all bodies have weight, just some bodies have weight. So if I make the claim some bodies have weight, my understanding of this bigger concept, bodies, is contingent, in a sense, on me being directly, me, the perceiver, the observer, being pointed to an instantiation of that attribute, right, that characteristic within the external world, right? Because obviously I would have to recognize this, I'd have to see this, right? This is obviously different from this. This claim is, according to Kant, an amplitive claim, right? Because it adds new information. So it doesn't explain, it contributes more or increase information. Right? I have a better understanding of what bodies are now. Oh, some bodies have weight. Okay, that's pretty cool. I get that now, right? I think technically you probably should say some bodies have mass, but some bodies have weight, some bodies have mass, some bodies, you can talk about sort of all the different ways we can group the subject bodies. For Kant, what Kant is saying, and this is important, right? The claim that some bodies have weight, it does amplify my understanding of bodies, but that claim have weight requires me, in order to claim that this is true or false, into the world for experience, right? I have to go into the world in order to attain a truth of this, in order to assess the validity of this claim. Remember, as we said, we're attempting to arrive at pure philosophical cognition, and the first thing that we denied was that we are going to be able to derive the truth of pure philosophical cognition in the world. That's the first thing that he said, right? It's not going to be external to the subject. He also says it's not going to be internal to the subject. So for Kant, what we can see is that he's going to place his emphasis here, right? He's going to place his emphasis on the analytic, explicative, a priori propositions and judgments. Though the synthetic play a role, they're not going to help in this initial sense in understanding how we finally arrive at this pure philosophical conception. So thus far, I mean, Kant is not the easiest read. He really isn't. He's one of my favorite philosophers because you have to work along with Kant. It's going to take a few videos to fully make sense of what he's saying. So if this is your first experience to Kant, in a very, very general sense, let me sort of recap before I move on to the next point. All Kant is saying is that alright, simple. You want to arrive at pure philosophical cognition, right? An ability to understand, right? An ability to process and recognize what is the case. So what he's attempting to do, you should see from the beginning, right from the beginning, is to marry, at least my interpretation of it, is to marry both the metaphysics with our epistemology. My ability to understand, my ability to cognize is an epistemological claim. My understanding of what that thing is, what is in the world, is a metaphysical claim. And the greater claim, which we haven't made yet, but we will make, is sort of the interaction between my mind and what exists, right? So that's sort of where we're going. If you want a hint into how this is resolved and how he addresses all of this, you can watch the video on Hume's Fork and Immanuel Kant, because you'll see where this is going. But for right now, all we have, all that he's presented is sort of the distinction between the a priori and the a posteriori. Very simple. A priori, independent to experience. A posteriori, dependent on experience. An example of the a posteriori, of the a priori, bachelor is an unmarried man. We recognize the claim a bachelor is an unmarried man is not only, it's synonymous now, right? These are equivalencies, right? The claim a bachelor is an unmarried man is not only an analytic claim, it's also an explicative claim. Why is it an explicative claim? Because all that it's doing, the predicate is doing, is explaining the subject. Okay. The next type of claim that you can have is an a posteriori claim. That a posteriori claim is a synthetic claim. But not only is it synthetic, it's amplitive, right? Why is it amplitive? I'm getting tongue-tied today. It's amplitive because the predicate gives me further information of the subject. If I am, hopefully that makes sense, if you are gaining more information than what's provided in the subject, then that information must be coming from somewhere. The question is, where is that information coming from? That information is coming from the external world. Thus, the distinction between my explicative judgments and my amplitive judgments is that my explicative judgments, all of the information I need is there in the proposition. My synthetic judgments, everything that I need is not within the proposition. The proposition sends me into the external world for verification. That's what he's basically saying.